Hi, I'm Holly Pike. If you'd like a trial of the Generation software that I use for digitizing, please visit trygenerations.com. This video is a recording of a live video I did for my previous students. You may hear references to You Can Digitize or YCD. That's my old website that is now closed. My new website is digitizingschool.com. If you like this video, please give us a thumbs up. Good evening, everyone. This is Holly Pike from Artistic Threadworks and YouCanDigitize.com, and we're going to do some auto-digitizing today for a beginning webinar. I'm going to insert the artwork, and we do it a little differently. I'm going to select it and say OK. The same box comes up that has the import information, but instead of our usual images template, I'm going to use simple artwork. I'm going to let the software create the design based on what I see in the artwork. You need to have very clean artwork when you use the auto digitizer, and by clean, not a lot of weird things or color variations happening in the artwork. It needs to be a nice clean outline if you're going to use an outline. I'll let it auto select the colors for me. If I uncheck that and go here to pick colors, I can pick my colors that I want to use for this design. But for the purpose of the lesson, I'm going to let it auto select. I'm going to leave the default of do not generate background color, automatically pick background color. It's doing a good job. All this out here is the background color. If I leave that unchecked, it's going to generate these white stitches. So I'll go back and show you what happens with that when that happens. And then I'm going to leave resize after inserting checked, so that if this artwork happens to come in too big or too small, if I make a mistake with my import numbers, I can change that. So I'll say OK. The same sizing box comes up. I'm going to make it fit my 4x4 or 100 by 100 hoop and say OK. Well, now this looks a little different. I want you to notice that when you bring artwork in, if you make a mistake and you choose simple artwork, you're going to see this white background with this dotted line around it. That's a pretty clear indication that you brought it into simple artwork and it's going to auto-digitize for you. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to right-click on this white background. And you see it highlights, and it even highlights around the little monkey guy. What I want to do is I want to get rid of that. So I'm going to hit Control-Delete and get rid of that. Now all it's going to work with is this little monkey. Now I'm going to hit Generate. I'll turn on my 3D, and there's my little monkey. Though there are things happening here that I don't like, I can change anything that I don't like here. But for an auto digitizer, that really didn't do a bad job at all. First things I'm going to do, I'm going to select with a left click holding my control key and selecting. Let me select the black one, it'll be easier. I'm going to select the black one, which is the outline. Notice down here it says Auto Judge. I'm going to change that to satin so that now we have a clean looking satin. Can you see the change in how the satin looked? Let me turn off the artwork and go back. Can you see if I bring it up here a little bit? This is not quite as clean as when we did it as a satin. It's just a little cleaner. So I do recommend that you do that. Well, now we've got some things going on here. This is that auto judge, and this is why I always tell you when you open your software and you start working with your defaults, change that default that comes up as auto judge to complex fill. Otherwise, you're going to get some weird things like this. You can see here it looks like a satin because it's narrow, and then it blends down into a complex fill. Well, that looks pretty bizarre as far as I'm concerned. So I'm going to right-click on that to select it, and I'm just going to change it all to a complex fill. So now everything in this area looks a little more uniform. Let's select each of the colors by left-clicking and holding the Control key. And for some reason it's saying running stitch. Okay, that's not a problem. Let's do this. Okay, we won't do that. We'll just select them individually. How about that? What I want to do is make everything that is brown a complex fill. Okay, now I want to go back and look at this one that said running stitch for some reason. Where was that one? Okay, looks like we've got them all. We want to just make them complex fill. We can change that. We can change it into a stamp pattern or a motif or anything we want to do with it, but let's start at the common denominator of a complex fill. That way we know that we have at least something clean to work with. Now the next thing I'm going to do is, if you look right here, you can see the jump stitches. I'm going to go ahead and use my scissors and clip those because we don't need to see them. I'm going to go ahead and clip them. Now we're going to take a look and see what we've got. The software is smart enough that it knows it has to create a void underneath these eyes and the nose and the mouth. It knows it has to do it, so it does it for us. That's a good thing. Also note that if I bring this up large and say I just, let me find this. If I delete the outline, let me show you what happens. The software is smart. It knows that we shouldn't have multiple layers on top of each other. If we had had this layer extended all the way in for that overlap, you would have had a satin outline on top of that. Software knows we don't want that, so it leaves the space. So that outline is nestled very nicely in between these big areas. It's a nice feature. The one thing that I don't like about the auto-generated satin stitch is that line width cannot be changed. It cannot be changed. It's a 0.06 line width. That's the narrowest we have in the software, and you can't change it. So that's one drawback, but you're auto-digitizing, so you have to have some trade-offs. So that's it to auto-digitizing. Any questions about what I've done so far? I'm going to bring in something else, and we're going to add maybe some shading or something to it and kind of make it our own. You can change the outline to a triple run. Let me do this. First, what you have to do is go to your view outline icon. Right click. Now you need to create a line from an area. A satin is an area, unless it's a satin border. So you need to create a line from an area. Okay? And I'll generate. Now I need to delete the old one, but look what happens. Because it created that void in there for the outline, you've got gaps. So that doesn't really help you. That's a trade-off that you're going to make. If you use the auto-digitizing feature, that's a trade-off you're going to have with the designs. You're going to have that outline, and there's nothing that you can do about it. Unless you want to tinker, and I sure don't. The purpose of using the auto-digitizer is to do it quickly. Yep, the tail right now is auto-judge, so let's just make it a satin, and now it is a satin. It looked like a satin because it was a narrow area, but I just made it a satin to make sure that now it will respond like a satin. See, now you have stitch angles happening, and you can change those stitch angles. Below the mouth is a little brown showing. Can you move the in and out point? Below the mouth, right there, I believe that is a travel stitch. I believe. And I believe it's right here. You see this? I believe this is where it is. I'm going to clip the scissors, and it didn't take it away. There, it was that one. It's this one here. See that? It was a travel stitch. That's the other thing when you auto-digitize. It's going to put those travel stitches in for you, and that's a good thing, but you may have to make some adjustments. So the way you would do that is I'm going to turn on my edit hand, turn on my stitches, turn off my 3D, and I'm going to make it really big. And then I'll come down here and look for the piece that is the travel piece. What was it? Okay, it's right here, right there. And then you can go in there and you can move that one stitch if you want. You can move it. It's a lot of work. I'm not sure it's really worth it, but you can do it to move it out of the way. You can pretty much move anything anywhere you want to move it. For me and my purposes, I would trim it. I would say don't give me a travel stitch there anymore. So if I come up here and let's get rid of that face again, get rid of this. So I got rid of the travel stitch. So now it's just going to jump. Or I could just go here and say, let's put a travel stitch in between here and here. So let's just put a travel stitch in. We can do that. It's not a big deal. Turn these off. Pick up our line tool and then come and just travel directly under that mouth. End it there. Right click and combine them. Generate your stitches. And then let's put back, let's do this. I need the piece. I should have just moved the piece. Stop it. Remember, your design is going to be grouped, so you want to make sure that you ungroup it. Let's move this out of the way. Let's go back up here and do it the right way. I'm going to take my line tool, and just as if I was manually digitizing, I'll put my line tool in. I'll select it, either here or here or here, and then I'll right-click on the color that I want to change it to, then drag that color up, generate my stitches. Let's drag it up in between there. That's a good spot for it. Now we can take this guy and put him right back in place. And we have the ability now to really reposition this jump stitch or travel stitch. We can change this so that it covers more. What you're seeing here, this black line, that's where the stitches originally were. The red line is what I'm editing. I'm moving the stitches so that it kind of fills in that and you can't see that travel stitch. So you can go right down to the stitch and edit right down the stitch. Can you change the color of the outline and make it different colors on different parts? You can change the color of the outline, and if you want to make it different colors on different parts, that's a great question, in fact. I don't think anybody's ever asked me that question. So like say maybe you wanted to have around his head and around the body a dark brown. But all of this is connected, and maybe you want the ears a lighter color. Great question. We're going to select it with a right click, go to our view outline icon, right click on the gray, and choose divide with a line. And now I'm just going to do this and this. Enter, generate. And now see this piece up here? It's separate. So let's go back and take this and maybe make that same color as the rest of them. And let's do his ears now. So we're going to just divide the ears. View outline icon, right click on the gray, divide with a line, left click, left click, left, left. Remember, start outside the area and go to the other side, like you're cutting a piece of pie. Enter, generate, and now you're going to see all these loose pieces here. Okay, so here's an ear, and here's an ear. Maybe make his ears light. So now we're changing our monkey. Well, what if we wanted this one and this one to be, oh gosh, maybe something in between. Maybe like that. We can do that. You just have to decide what you want and then do it. You can combine your colors by dragging them up. I always make my black stitch last when I have a design like this because that's, as you saw, you have that little gutter in there. So you want to let that stitch last and fill up all that, you know, those gutters that are left there. Well, so now let's change the outside outline. It's all going to be one color, so let's change it to that. Let's change it to that, which means we might want to change some of this other stuff. Let's change the eyebrows. We might just want to leave his eyes brown. I'm not sure I'd pick these colors, but you know, you get the point. And for the purpose of a webinar, you know, you kind of get the point. Let's find a better color. Maybe that's a better color. So you can really do whatever you want. What did I combine the travel stitch with? I did not combine the travel stitch with anything. I just went in and added it with a line and then put it up into the order to stitch in the correct order. I put it up in here where I wanted it to stitch in the correct order. Okay, here's something else you might want to do with this guy. I don't like these heavy things in his ears. So I would probably go and find them wherever they are. Is that that? And I would delete them. But again, because our software is smart and because it knows we don't want anything underneath here, we get these voids. So I'm going to right click on that one, hold my control key, right click on the other one. They're both selected, so I can work with them at the same time. Go into my view outline icon, right click, because whenever you see gray, what are you supposed to do? Everybody should be yelling, right click. Exactly. Now we're going to fill a void. Oh, but it won't let us fill a void. Why won't it let us fill a void? Interesting. No problem. Let's do it differently. Right click and let's adjust with a line. My cursor changes to the pointy cursor. I'm going to left click right there on the edge and left click right there. It makes it green. Now you see I can grab this line or I can grab this one. If I left click on this one, it brings that area down and flattens it and fills it up and makes it just like new. Okay, we'll do it over here again. This time let's use adjust with an arc. It works pretty much the same way. Left click, left click. What that's doing is defining I can either do the outside border or the inside border. With this one, I'll left click and I'll just drag it until I get it where I want it. Left click and done. Now we can take and put some real shading in his ear. How about that? Let's take this line tool. probably make that a single run. I'm going to change it to that color and move it up so that it stitches before my ears. So maybe up here. Right click and generate. Then I'll select it. I'll copy and paste and flip it. Drag it over. Put it in position. And I'll drag this one. Whoops. I'll drag this one up and drop it there. So you see, you can take something that has been basically auto-digitized and make it into a design of your choosing. Auto-digitizing redwork, is that what you're asking, Vicki? Cheryl is saying, I'm surprised that Divide with the Line works so good, as I have had problems with it on other things such as generate an outline from an area. Probably the reason it worked better, Cheryl, I find that it works really well on this thicker satin because there's more area to get to. You can be more precise with a bigger area. I generally don't have too much trouble with the Divide with the Line in auto-digitizing when I'm using that or playing with that. But it can be a little, you know, it can mess with your mind a little bit. Yes, like line work, like pen drawings or auto-digitized line work. Um, okay, you can, but the problem with that is you may not get the desired result. But what I'll show you is how to take like a design, this exact design, and make red work from it without going through the entire process. It's kind of like auto red work. I can show you how to do that. Any more questions about this and the basic process of the auto digitizing? It's basically 7 clicks to a design. Now, are you going to be happy with that design? Maybe, maybe not. If, you know, little Johnny, little Susie has a Halloween party and they're supposed to wear a mummy on their shirt and you forgot to do it the night before, are you going to go in and use your auto digitizer? Maybe. Maybe, or you're going to download it from Artistic Threadworks, but you might use the auto digitizer. The stitch angles on the eyes are different. Why is that? Let me look. Because it's auto digitized. It's just that simple. They're auto digitized. Frankly, what I would do if I were doing this design, to be perfectly honest with you, once it auto digitized these eyes, I would delete them. I would come in here and I would fill a void with a left click. Whoa, that was interesting. Oh, it's locked because I changed it. And then I would take my circle tool, hold my control key down, and draw the eye that I want. Copy and paste, move it into place, make them into satin stitches, change the color so that they look better. It's just because it was auto-digitized. The software is not smart enough to make human decisions. It's smart enough to make logarithmic decisions. Okay, any other questions? Oh, you bet, Khalees. Okay, I'm going to take this guy. We don't need to save him. But what I am going to do is I'm going to see this line work here. We can auto digitize that. Is that kind of what you're talking about, Vicki? Just this kind of a deal? Okay, let me just bring this guy in. Left click, say OK. Simple artwork. Going to let it do all that work for us. Let's keep it in a reasonable size. Now I'm going to delete all the areas, holding my control key. I'm going to delete all the areas, all the white. So I'm holding my control key and right-clicking on everything that's white. I don't want anything to generate. Okay? Now I'll control delete. All I've got is the line. I'll let it generate, and we've got basically a thing with all kinds of parts. The next thing I will do is, let me see what all these little parts are. I'm going to get rid of that because I'm going to put that in myself. Get rid of that. The reason is because I'll just put these little things in myself. Okay. Sometimes they make things touch, and that it just kind of complicates things. Okay, so now we've got most of this little guy here, and let's do this and this too for his little face. We're going to go up here to the view outline icon. Let's make this bigger. Right click and choose create line from area and say OK. Now you see it down here and it's much thinner. So what I need to do is I need to go up here and select these thick pieces and control delete them. Now I basically got a piece of red work, but these guys I've got to change into lines. So let's do that. There's a line here. Just using my line tool that y'all learned with manual digitizing. Get rid of that one. Put those in. Okay, so now we've kind of got all the lines in, but you'll notice when I bring it up to larger screen, this is what I turn my navigator on. F3 on your keyboard is the navigator box. When I do red work, I use my navigator because I can bring my design up to 400 and then I can move them around my design like this and find any spots that are not connected, like these little spots. What I'm going to do for that is I'm going to select the design. So I've got all of these lines selected. Go into my view outline icon, right click, edit mode. Now I'm going to left click on it and drag and bring these guys to where I want them. Everything is editable. I'll generate and take a look. It's looking good. I'll just kind of check everything to make sure it's doing what I want it to do. Tidy some things up. And I can look right over here and watch where I'm going on the screen until I get to a spot that I want to edit. Don't edit too much because if you do, then the program might crash on you when you generate, so be careful. I have like a ton of RAM, so I tend to live on the edge. I'm going to go back out to 1-to-1 and generate. And now you can see that everything's all connected and looking the way we really want it to look. But now I've got this piece and this piece and this piece. Well, I'm going to go ahead and merge together these two pieces because they're so close. So right click, view outline icon, right click, merge. All these guys need to be changed to black and put into a good stitching order. I would usually do my design first to stabilize my fabric. And then I'd just start putting these guys in the way I want to stitch them. That works. Now if you want to, you can right click Choose everything, turn it red. I'd probably change the eyes as well. Okay, does that kind of answer your questions and concerns about making red work with this? It's so versatile. I mean, I just love to play with the auto-digitizer to see what it will and won't do. Sometimes I'll find a piece of artwork and say, gee, I wonder if this will auto-digitize. Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. Okay, let's close this guy. Let's bring another piece of artwork in. I want to show you how we can add whatever we want. Let's just go pick something else. I have no idea what these guys are. Well, let's take this one. Oops, I'm so used to using image as template. I'm going to say okay. I'm going to remove everything that I don't want to generate. Now we got a little problem here. You see that? There's a gap in the artwork somewhere. So that's a little problem. Not to worry, we can fix it. You know why? Because we can manually digitize. That's why. All you have to do is select anything that didn't generate. And I'll go up here and I'll put my other piece in. I'll take my area tool. I'm just going to stay right down the center of this outline because we know the outline is going to cover it. There's my gap. Okay, take all of these. If you right click, you can move to a specific location like between frames 29 and 30, or you can move all the way to the top, move all the way to the bottom, or you can get the properties and tell it to lock them, be visible, stop, make a user-defined trim, user-defined thing. So I'm just going to move that to the top. I'm going to choose my blue and right-click on my white. So my white is there. And we have our little snowman. Well, now, turn off the artwork. Let's select the black and make sure it's a satin. And though I don't like the job that it did here, it still did it. It certainly still did it. Let's find something that we can really experiment with. Let's take this guy. Remove all that outside stuff and let's generate them. Well, that didn't do too bad a job, but look, the white didn't generate because the background was white. And it said, do not generate background color, and the background was white. So all we have to do is right-click and generate, and it'll put it in for us. And then I'm going to push that up to the top so that it stitches before my outline. Let's make sure that we have, let's select everything, hold our control key, and we're going to make everything into complex fill. Just to start off with, we can change anything we want later. And we're going to make this into a satin. Okay, so we've got our little bunny. Well, I don't like those eyes, so let's go up here and take a look at these eyes. The eyes are connected, so that's a little problematic. Well, I'm going to go to my view outline icon, right click, divide with a line, enter, generate. Here's my two eyes down here. It always throws it to the bottom like that. And I'm just going to delete them because remember, I like to put my own eyes in. So now I have to fill these voids. So it's right click, fill a void. I'm okay with that because now I can create a void for the nose. Okay, so now I'm good, right? I'm going to take my circle tool. When you drag it, you can make a oval if you hold your control key down. You can do anything with these objects that you do with any object that you manually digitized. That's what I like so well about this software. It's really um, fully functional all the way down to, the very last stitch. Well, now what if we want to make this heart a motif? We don't want this heavy looking heart going on there. Well, that's not a problem. We can right click on it, hit our space bar, go over here to motifs. Every stitch type has a tab. I'm going to come down and choose one of my favorites, number 26. If I click this chain, this little link, it's going to change these two numbers together. So right now they're 5. If I change them to 7, they both change. Okay? So let me show you what happens if I don't. If I don't do that and I change this one to 7, only the top one changes. So if you want them to change proportionately, you need to click, oops, you need to click them, the chain link. But now they're overlapping. I don't want them to overlap. So this is our layout. This square down here pulls it down this way. Okay? You can do all that kind of stuff. If you left click and drag this one, you can do all this kind of stuff. Okay? This one, you can turn it around and, have a field day with it. This one is a rotate. Then these boxes here make it bigger or smaller. So if you're like me and you don't know the numbers, you can just kind of drag things around until you get it to look like you like it. There's your preview. Close and OK. And there's our little heart with a motif in it. Well, what if you didn't want to put a motif in it, but you wanted to have another heart inside the heart? Well, that's okay too. We can do that. Let's take our little punch tool. I just selected it. I'm going to left click and drag and release when I've got the shape that I want. Now I can shape my heart by dragging these guys. I can play with it and get whatever I want. When I'm done, hit enter and escape. Now I can move that over here. Let's create a void. And let's make that pink. So there really is nothing that you can't change on this little bunny. What if we wanted to put some shading on his feet? Because, he looks like a little plump rabbit. Well, we can do that. He's a pink, so let's take a little darker pink. I'm going to use my continuous line tool. And put some pink shading in there. This is where the tablet really shines. You can put some shading in. It's easy tool to use when you have a tablet. If you don't have a tablet, it becomes just a little more difficult. This tool is not quite as fluid. Put a little shading under here. And now we have a bunny that started out as an auto-digitized bunny, but he really kind of belongs to me now because I've changed him and I've done the things that, you know, I wanted to do with him. Vicky just asked me, she says she's just curious, am I good at digitizing because of spatial skills or your artistic skills or both? Gosh, yeah, I never thought about it. But I I do have pretty good spatial skills. My artistic skills have been developed over the course of time that I've been digitizing. I don't happen to believe that you have to be an artist in order to digitize. I think these are all learned skills. Inside of ears too. Yeah, the inside of the ears aren't done. So we can right click and generate and put some ears in. But let's make them complex fill and move them to the top. Let's put some shading in there. So we'll change it to that pink. Okay, so now we got a little shading in his ears. It looks a little more like a bunny. They were hollow, but they're not now. We got it now. So you see, it's for a very basic webinar. There's an awful lot that you can do with the auto digitizing tools. I'll show you here where. Let's save this guy. He's just kind of cute. And let's put him in here. Rabbit. Where this function really, really does well are on stick figures. This is where the auto digitizing functions really work well because you have a lot of lines and satins that you want to connect, and it's just where the software really shines. Scanned image, I'm going to say OK. Let's remove all these areas. You have to be careful not to get that outline. If you do, just left click on it again. It's almost easier to manually digitize this, but you know, it's just kind of fun to play with it. This is where it really, really, really shines as a tool. I'm going to change these to complex fill. I would do the lettering with the lettering in the software, but other than that, the little design, you know, is just cute. You need something quick. It works, and they stitch out really, really well. I haven't seen too much difficulty with these auto-digitized design stitching. The only time you'll have a real problem is if you have large areas and you have not adjusted your stitch angles. You know, for example, it's automatic for me to do a template. I'm going to Control Delete and then generate. Now, if you have a lot of areas, I'm just going to select these so I can change them to complex fill. Okay. If you have areas like this area and this one that are all close to each other, if your stitch angles are all the same or similar, like these two are the same, you will have an issue with your outlines registering and lining up. So the best thing you can do is you just kind of look at your stitch angles, and I'm going to change that stitch angle. This one's different. Just change your stitch angles so that you don't have these issues. Let's put our white in. Move them up to the top. Complex fill. And you got a little sock monkey that is very stitchable. One thing I don't like is it leaves these little lines here so that you need to go in and find them and clip your jump stitches. But that's just the nature of the beast. And anytime you use an auto function, then you stand the risk of it not being perfect. You just do, because you don't have the control over those features. Good night, Kathy. Well, if you don't like the stick figures, what would you do for more realistic images? You would manually digitize them. I would never, ever, 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 ever try to auto-digitize anything realistic. It's not going to come out. It's not going to happen. I can show you, and you're going to say, oh, wow, okay, I got it. Let me go over here. Let's just see if I can find. Okay, let's just take this one. Let's do it as simple artwork. I'm going to say, okay, let's change the size again, just so that we can see it. And let's remove the white, same process. But now remember how I talked about really clean images? This is not a clean image. You see why? See all the space here between the outlines? This is not smooth. You really want a vector image. It's not smooth. So now I'm going to hit generate. Not even close to something I would like. And I would consider this more of a realistic design. Not even close. The artwork isn't clean. The subject matter is going to be a challenge to auto-digitize. If you want something more realistic, flowers, animals, things like that, just manually do them. It's going to be easier, less of a headache for you. When you clip the jump stitches, do they go away or just visually go away? They visually go away. They're still there. They visually go away. They're there, and then your machine will stop. If your machine cuts jump stitches, it'll cut, and then jump to the next place. If your machine doesn't cut jump stitches, then it'll stop, tie in, jump, and then start stitching again. It won't. They don't go away. They have to be there. There has to be a way for you to get from point A to point B sometimes, and that's a jump stitch. So what I'm doing is just trimming them here so that they're not in my screen and they're not distracting me. And I can see what my design is truly going to look like. Any questions? I like to go over the auto digitizing every once in a while because people forget that it's there, and it can be useful. It can be very useful. The magic wand is a cool thing that we learned in class yesterday, the apprentice class. And that's a cool thing. I'll just kind of show you how the magic wand works. Oops. I need to bring it in images template. Okay. So the magic wand, if I select my magic wand and I click on a color, let me bring this screen up a little bit. if I take my magic wand and click on a color, you can see how it's going to fill that area. If you don't like how it's going to fill the area, you can adjust this color a little bit or adjust the noise level, and it might fill it a little better. When you're happy, you say okay, and it fills that area for you. Again, it is not as good as manually doing it yourself, but for large areas, it can be helpful. Okay? Because for realistic things, I would not do blocks of color. Like in here, I would not do blocks of color like this. I would use a shading technique in here, but it does fill it, and it accounts for push and pull compensation and all that kind of thing that you need to be concerned about. So the magic wand is another option for you if you're doing lots of very large areas. Any questions? Any questions you have about anything else before we call it an evening? I will caution you that if you're a new digitizer, the danger is to do lots and lots of digitizing, but not lots and lots of stitching. And you should be stitching everything you digitize, everything. Because as I tell the team, your sewing machine is your best teacher. That's going to tell you what's really going on, and it's going to catch things that I won't catch. And it'll catch things that you won't catch until you actually see it stitch.
Hi, I'm Larry. I hope you enjoyed this video. It was recorded during a live webinar that Holly taught some of her students for digitizing. At this point, she's finished the lesson that she had planned to teach, and for the next 20 or 30 minutes, probably, she'll go on and answer random questions from her students during the live webinar. I'm going to cut those off, and I'm going to take those and turn them into little video shorts to put here on our YouTube channel later. But for now, you've got this lesson, and if you enjoyed it, learned something, please give it a thumbs up. That helps our rankings with YouTube. Also, if you'd like a copy of the software that Holly's using so that you can digitize along with her, we can get you a 30-day trial that's fully functional if you just go to www.trygenerations.com www.trygenerations.com, and we'll give you all the details there. Thanks for watching.